Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. Oh man, I'm still just reeling and just relishing the excitement. You know, it's been tough for me personally for the last month or so, but this movie is just giving me so much life and so much excitement and so much joy. Everything about No Way Home is just brilliant. I finally saw it a second time on Tuesday. It was a sold-out, packed theater with non-comic book fans, and it was fun to watch them get excited. You know, I knew they weren't comic book fans because they didn't get excited at moments that I freaked out about and the opening night crowd freaked out about. But it was fun to see regular people getting psyched about Spider-Man. And the big thing, this video is going to contain lots and lots of spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, leave. Go home. Go see No Way Home. Then come back and listen to this one. But spoilers, the thing that got everybody in every theater that I've seen it in excited was the moment we started to bring in all three Spider-Men into one movie. Yes, Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, all in No Way Home. Oh, it was wonderful, and I think it could be spelling some big things coming for the world of Spider-Man. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive into some thoughts on all three guys being in the movie and some theories on where we could be going from the arrival of three Spider-Man in Spider-Man No Way Home. That's right, man. It was... it was one of the most satisfying cinematic moments of my entire life. Now, granted, getting Andrew and Tobey into the world took a little bit of time, but once all three guys were there and getting to see them as Spider-Men working together, I mean, you got to see them struggle, then you got to see them pull it together. You know, we got to do some, pointing references a couple times in the movie, and then you got to see them work together and just do things visually that, I never ever in my life dreamed you would see three Spider-Man in one shot flying down and then landing in harmony to get and the way that they fight the villains and the moments and the sequences, it was just wonderful. And it was something that I immediately needed to get back to the theater to experience again. It's the reason this movie is making so much money, and it's the reason why I think this will be the first American billion-dollar movie of the pandemic. I think China has at least one, if not two already. But I think this could be the billion-dollar movie because the feeling as a Spider-Man fan you get seeing these three guys come on the screen together, you just want to relive it over and over because it's one of those, we all knew it was coming. I think we had enough hints and enough things where it was you knew these guys are showing up. But how and when and the way they put it together, you just sat there in the seat going, I can't believe that they actually did it. You knew it was coming, but it happened. They really did it. They brought all three of these guys together, and I think it would be foolish to not capitalize on that momentum. I mean, there is a world where you could literally put out a Spider-Man universe movie every year with all the things that they potentially have in the works with villain movies. And with these three guys, the world is your oyster, Sony, and you could fill it with tons and tons of Spider-Men. And I think, much like the MCU in general, you're not going to oversaturate. People aren't going to get tired of it because you can put a different Spider-Man on screen every time, right? You could have 3 years in between seeing Tom Holland, but you might get Andrew, you might get Tobey. It's one of those things where, Holland is a little apprehensive about this trilogy. Maybe one of the things they talked about is bringing in the other guys, and, maybe you could create longer gaps for Holland so he can go do other things, but you can still get Spider-Man movies. And based on what I saw in the movie, specifically for Andrew Garfield, seemed like there was a lot of redemptive stuff around his character and just, get-back moments for him because of him and Tobey. While, yeah, Tobey kind of got screwed because Sony wasn't going to let Raimi direct the movie if he couldn't do it at a specific time, him and Dunst walked away. They said goodbye. They said, hey, if Raimi's not directing, we're not coming. And, it was a different time period back then, but I've said this before, I didn't get the vibe that Tobey was a diehard Spider-Man fan the way Tom Holland, but even more so Andrew Garfield is, right? Those two guys have always been very open and about the fact that they are huge Spider-Man fans. And I think Tobey loved being Spider-Man. I think he relished the opportunity. I think he did great things with it. And I think he loves this world. I mean, he doesn't come back, right, if he doesn't. He doesn't give you the performance he gets if he doesn't. But things that were going on, right? Like Tom missing saving MJ, giving Garfield the ability to save her and kind of redeem not saving Gwen. There's just a lot more emotion behind the Andrew Garfield stuff, and I think as fans, we knew that the issues with the Amazing Spider-Man movies that people had weren't coming from Andrew Garfield. Everybody loved Andrew Garfield, and I think to a degree, it feels like he kind of got robbed. He never got that third movie that he should have got, because Feige came in and said, hey, come over here and we can play with Spider-Man together, but I want to bring in a new Spider-Man. I want to do Spider-Man correct. I mean, it's one of those things where Feige loves Spider-Man so much. He's been open about how much he loves it. It's why he was willing to work with Sony and give a very, very Sony-friendly deal the first time around, because he wanted to play with Spider-Man and do it, the way Spider-Man should have been done, with a 16-year-old kid. And, it worked. But I think Andrew Garfield fans, we've always been like, it sucks he never got that third movie, or that, like, legitimate send-off, or the decision to walk away on his own, right? It just was taken from him. And I think bringing them back, while it not only gives Tobey and Andrew wonderful moments and chances to come back and kind of get to say, like, officially, like, goodbye, like, hey, we knew we were coming back, we knew this was the last one, fun. I think it sets up a world where you could bring these guys back, and if they're into it, I think the world would receive it. And I think we are definitely going to get an Amazing Spider-Man 3. I think it is... rumors are already starting to swirl that there could be multiple projects for Garfield. We just talked about in our last video how Andrew Garfield might be the way into getting a Spider-Man in the world of Venom. You could see that Venom 3 get us into the Spider-Man world and set something up for Andrew Garfield. And I think you could, go see Rhino. We see him, obviously, in the rips, when we're looking at, like, people who were trying to come through at the end of No Way Home. So you could do that movie. You could give him the Spider-Man 3, the Amazing Spider-Man 3 that he was hoping for, that we were hoping that we might get. Or you give him something new. But I think you definitely bring him back for at least one movie. And if Garfield's on to do more than one, and that first movie does well, I think you do more than one movie with Garfield, and it would be really fun to see him come back in. And, the other thing, too, with this movie is we get to see the MCU's Peter Parker save all 5 of these villains and cure them, so to speak, but we don't get the payoff of seeing what happens when they go back, and the fact that the Spider-Men know that, right? And it seems like both Spider-Men were maybe pulled from different times, but, like, I want to see what happens when they go back, how those moments play out, and then maybe fast forward to wherever we pulled Tobey and Andrew from, and see how they work in a world with these characters that were cured. And I would love to see that with Garfield, and I think you give at least Tobey one movie, so you could see that with Doc Ock and Green Goblin and Sandman, like, see what the cured versions of those villains are doing in that world. And if I'm Sony, that's the thing I'm definitely doing. I'm making 3 more with Holland for sure, and there are lots of things to cover and lots of things I think Spider-Man fans would love to see, but you're not going to be able to pack it all into that Holland trilogy. Like, for the Holland trilogy, I think we're definitely going to deal with Venom based on that hint. If you're talking to me, I think we're definitely going to deal with Mysterio at some point, and I think it would be really cool to have an actual Sinister Six. Like, yes, we had 5 out of 6 on screen for this one, and the end of the Amazing Spider-Man movies kind of teased the idea of a Sinister Six, and that could be coming. It kind of felt like you were just building with the people who were getting dropped into the Tobey Maguire movies, that you could maybe go that route one day. Like, the Sinister Six is something I think fans want to really see happen, and I think you could build a trilogy with Spider-Man that brings in a Venom storyline of some kind, that brings Mysterio back in, and maybe sets you up with a third movie that has all 6 villains. I mean, the one thing that was never really answered is when the villains disappeared, and they came back, and, like, Electro was all juiced up, and, Green Goblin had worked on some things. Where did they go? Who were they interacting with? Who was helping them out? Or how did they get that tech? Like, I think there's a world where you could answer all those questions and wrap it up with this big, huge 6th movie with Tom Holland that could involve a legitimate Sinister Six. And then if you're looking outside of the MCU, I think, like I said, with Tobey, I think you go back, you show us what's going on with Doc Ock and Norman Osborn in the world of Spider-Man, and maybe give him a character that we haven't gotten to see, or a storyline that maybe was coming for Spider-Man 4 from Sam Raimi. But I think it would be fun to bring that whole crew back, right? Like, get Kirsten Dunst, go get Raimi. He's doing a movie in the MCU already. He could do another Spider-Man movie if you give him the time, and give us at least one more Tobey movie. I don't get the vibe that Tobey would do more than one. I get more of that vibe from Garfield. But I think Tobey would be back for one movie that's just his, and seeing an older Peter Parker and an older Spider-Man would be a lot of fun, and that version of the character suits Tobey 10 times better than the original version as a high school student, right? Like, I think this version that we got in No Way Home might be the best that we've gotten from Tobey, at least as Peter Parker. And being the older, wiser one, it would be cool to see him do that. And then Andrew Garfield, like I said, I think you definitely bring him back for one. If he wants to do more than one, bring him back for a few. I think he's a guy that Spider-Man fans would love to see back on screen and continuing on that story. I want to see what happened to Doc Connors and to Max, and how they play in that Andrew Garfield world, and where that Spider-Man is going, also as a little bit older, a little more seasoned. And then, like I said, if he wants to do more, when you were seeing those rips in the universe, one of those characters that was out there, and this could maybe even play in for Tobey Maguire too, because he wasn't in the same rip as Rhino, but it was very obviously, at least to me, that Kraven the Hunter was one of those characters that they showed up on the screen. We know he has a movie coming. It would be really cool if you can't work Kraven the Hunter into the Tom Holland trilogy in some way, right? That you get a last hunt story for maybe Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, or maybe that's the movie you bring Tobey in for, right? Where you do Last Hunt with Kraven the Hunter and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Like, that would be really cool. But I think you work Kraven in somewhere between Tobey and Andrew. And then if you really want to do this thing right, you want to get big and nuts, you want to do this right, I think you do one or two movies with Garfield. I think you do a movie with Tobey. I think you set up little hints that could be tying these storylines together or building to something a lot bigger. And then also in the Tom Holland trilogy, I think you could, or either of their movies, you could introduce Madam Web, who is the actual pathway to the multiverse for Spider-Man, right? Like, while the MCU is doing the multiverse, Spider-Man always, took advantage of the multiverse more than anybody else. And I think it would be stupid, especially with all of the success of the animated Spider-Verse movies, to not do a live-action Spider-Verse movie where you can get these three guys on the red carpet together, where you can get these three guys doing a press tour, like all this stuff. I think fans now knowing that they're in this movie, you wish you would have gotten in the build-up. You could do that with a Spider-Verse movie. And the other thing, too, that I think you got to see in the Tom Holland movies is you have to introduce Miles somewhere in there, whether it's the second movie, whether it's the third movie. I think maybe you set him up in the second movie, maybe bring him in with Holland a little bit in the third movie, and that's kind of the passing of the torch. You let Holland finish this out, and then in the MCU, if the MCU is still kicking and doing big things, you bring Miles in to take over the run for Spider-Man. And same thing, you let these two guys go off and kind of pass the torch to Miles, and do that in a Spider-Verse movie, and bring, Spider-Gwen in, and bring these three guys, and bring Miles. That would be 5. Maybe you could bring one more, and you match up 6 Spider-Men and 1 woman, or maybe 2 women. Sure, I don't know. Maybe bring Spider-Woman, bring Spider-Gwen, bring Miles, bring these 3 guys. You have 6 Spider people and 6, villains. And you do a big Spider-Verse movie that spins out from that third Tom Holland movie. That would make $2 billion. That would be your Spider-Man Endgame. You know what I mean? And I think if Marvel and Sony are smart, and they see the amount of money that could be made around Spider-Man and they do it right, I think you could 100% get these 2 guys back a little bit, and you could build Tom Holland's trilogy to this massive Spider-Verse movie that you promote that way, and you lean into, and you do all the fun stuff of a live-action Spider-Verse, and that's how you close out Tom Holland's story, that's how you close out Tobey Maguire's story, that's how you close out Andrew Garfield's run, and then you let Spider-Gwen and Miles into this world and pass the torch that way. That would be so cool! And it's totally in play now that these two guys have shown up. And like I said, you could start connecting these worlds. If Venom maybe shows up in Amazing Spider-Man, there's so many things you could do that every opportunity is on the table for Sony and Spider-Man and Marvel. And Feige very rarely drops the ball when everything is available to him there. And I think Amy Pascal has shown, working with Kevin Feige, that she knows how to do these things, and that she is just as much deserves just as much credit as Feige when it comes to these Spider-Man movies. Like, it's not like Feige's coming in here and being like, Amy Pascal, I got this, you chill. Like, I think there's a teamwork there, and there's a relationship that works, and I think Pascal has learned a lot from that. And I would love to see Pascal build out a Spider-Verse world where she can show everybody, like, hey, I can do this too. And I think there's a lot of money on the table for Sony and Marvel if they do this right. But you could totally see all these guys come back for more than one more movie, not just Tom Holland. So there you go, man. Those are all my Spider-Men thoughts. We've got 3 Spider-Men, 3 Spider-Man universes, and I think there are a whole lot of movies that could be made out there in those worlds, and I think you could bring them all together for one big one. But those are all my thoughts on what could be going on with Tom Holland's trilogy, what you do with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Now I want to know what you're thinking, man. First and foremost, how big was the pop for you when you finally got to see all 3 on screen together? Did you love how they pulled them in? I've always said it was awesome that Andrew came in as Spider-Man and Tobey came in as Pete. Did that hit for you? Getting to see them on screen together, was that super exciting? What was your favorite moment? I've really... all of them, but when they react to the organic web shooters from Tobey, that moment just made me so happy. When they did the pointing more than once, dressed as, working in the science lab, and then even in the final, finale, that stuff was great. Getting to see Andrew Garfield tell them he loves them, and then just going, thanks, man. Like, that was a wonderful moment. And then, of course, Tom Holland hugging them at the end and just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, I think you feel that, right? Like, if you're Tom Holland, those 2 guys, if they don't come, he doesn't get there. And the same for Garfield. Without Tobey, he doesn't get a chance. And to see them just kind of all come together, oh, that was great. So if those were your favorite moments, if there were different ones, I want to know what moments were your favorite, and I want to know what theories or thoughts you got. Am I crazy? Do you think you could see the world that I just laid out? Or do you have a different one that can maybe work with all 3 of these guys? Anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, on Spider-Man No Way Home and the 3 Spider-Men, goes down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to be here for any other No Way Home coverage, I do want to do a full spoiler review at some point where I try to talk about everything. If you want to be here for any of that stuff, you want to be here as Spider-Man just moves on in the MCU, maybe only come around when I talk Spidey, that's cool. You just like when I'm talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to show a little love and support, well, hey, it's super easy. Come join C-Maniac Nation. You just gotta jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man, and I am signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.